Hello. So to continue on from advocacy, I said we would talk about how do you advocate for reasonable adjustments. So again, I'll share my screen. Hopefully we can see that. Yep. So I think we're in the right place. How do we advocate for reasonable adjustments? I just need to make a reasonable adjustment and move myself to a different corner so that I can see what's on here. So advocating for reasonable adjustments and the implementation of a personalised sensory diet for a child in school requires a collaborative, evidence-based approach that ensures the child's sensory needs are met. Here's how you can advocate effectively. So I've chosen sensory because a lot of parents talk about sensory diets, but they're not necessarily done on a personalized basis. It's one size fits all, and that's not necessarily right for our children. So we're looking at understanding the child's needs, gather information, obtain reports or recommendations from occupational therapists or other professionals outlining the child's sensory needs. Review any existing assessments, such as education, health and care plan, or individualized education plan (IEPs) that mentions sensory needs. Observe and document. Encourage parents to document examples of how unmet sensory needs affect the child's behavior. Focus on learning at school. So you may have to wait a few weeks or a couple of months to gather this information yourself, because the school should be gathering it, but they may not. So you need to start gathering it, and that may take a few. So if you haven't got it already, start to look into and start providing a file as to are the behaviours because of the sensory not being taking place, because they should have a sensory diet or they should have some form of movement break or something in school, but it's not happening, and then we're having behavioural problems. That's what we're looking at here. Know the legal and policy framework. So we can look under the Equality Act of 2010 that schools must make reasonable adjustments to prevent substantial disadvantage for children with disabilities. Individual Disability Education Act, that's within the US, so very similar to the Equality Act. And then what school policy can we look at to back up what we are saying? So there'll be the SCN policy, there will be behavioural policy, there will be bullying policy, and we've spoke about last month policies, school policies, and the bullying policy. So that's what we're looking at to back up, and we just need to make sure we've read through them to highlight the areas that would make this to our advantage and put our point across more effectively. So prepare the case, build a clear statement, emphasize that sensory regulation directly impacts a child's ability to access education. Link the need for adjustment to legal obligations and the school's responsibility to support the child. There will be comeback on that, and as long as we know what we're talking about, they can be dealt with fairly easily because we are talking about individuals and not blanket policies. And we've also got the legislation on our side and not policy on our side, because policies or legislation outranks policies, as we know. Specify the sensory diet. Outline what sensory diet involves. Movement breaks, access to sensory tools, a quiet space, etc. If you've had a sensory assessment, these will be outlined in the assessment. So it's not something you have to make up or look at. It will be broken down for you, or should be. And explain how it's going to help. Again, if you've had the assessment, in that assessment report, it will tell you how these particular activities are designed to help your child and what it is there for. So is it to reduce the anxiety? Is it to allow them to just self-regulate and allow them to move on, to be able to take in more information because they have regulated themselves, that sort of thing. We need to learn how to work collaboratively with the school, request a meeting, arrange a meeting with the SENCO, teachers and any other relevant staff. So this is the role of the advocate, whether that's a family friend, a family member, or somebody like myself. This is what we need to be doing. Share documents and reports from professionals that support the sensory diet. If you've had an Ed Psych report in the last sort of year or so, that will tell you in there if there's sensory issues as well. They will have picked up on it. Set goals and actions. Work with the school to agree on specific measurable actions, providing a wobble cushion, access to sensory room, access to fidget tools, that sort of thing. Ensure these actions are written into the child's SEN support plan or IEP. Advocate for implementation. Propose reasonable adjustments. Suggest simple practical adjustments such as regular sensory breaks, movement or stretching every 30 minutes. For some children, it might be every 10 minutes, depending on age and their level of anxiety and the level of issues they have with insensory. So 30 is obviously a guideline, but for some children it's going to be every 10 minutes to begin with until we learn to just self-regulate ourselves. Use of sensory tools, noise-cancelling headphones, fidget toys, weighted blankets. Access to quiet or safe space during overwhelm. And highlight how these adjustments can benefit the child and the classroom by reducing disruption. Offer training. Recommend staff training on sensory needs to help them better understand and implement strategies. Request regular reviews. Agree on a timeline for reviewing the effectiveness of the sensory diet. So we will put in, might be half a term, it might be a whole term. We can discuss that with the school, and again, it's how receptive is a child going to be able to determine the time as well, because it might take a little while for the child to actually want to do that as well. So we need to build that into the timeline and thought process. Following up on monitoring progress, keep records, document all meetings, decisions, and agreed actions. Track any changes in the child's behaviour, focus or engagement after adjustment are implemented. Communicate with the school. Regularly check in with teachers or SEN staff to ensure strategies are being followed, and encourage parents to maintain open communication about what's working and what needs tweaking. Escalate if necessary. If resistance occurs, reiterate the school's legal duty to provide reasonable adjustments. Consider escalating concerns to the school leadership or governing body. Engage local support organisations or SEN advocacy services for assistance, like PACT, like Rainbow Stars. There are others out there, but they're the two local in Lincoln that I would talk about for schools. Parents can contact a SEN Tribunal UK or equivalent in other regions if the school fails to meet obligations. Now, I've always said that don't bother doing complaints because it takes so long. What I failed to realise until recently is that you haven't got to go through a complaints procedure to bring a tribunal to a case, because if they're not meeting their responsibilities for reasonable adjustments, we can actually request a tribunal to take the school to tribunal for not providing, and we can have them answer the reasons why they're not doing these things. We first of all have to prove that we have brought these things to the school's attention, and we could put in a little written complaint to give them options and the opportunity to put these things right. But if we're being met with resistance after resistance, then let's take them to a SEN tribunal, and I will cover that in another video. Okay, so that is really good news, and it's not too long-winded. Although having said that, I think it's a 20-week waiting period to get a tribunal to court, unless we are talking about an exclusion. And if the child's been excluded, then we are looking about fast tracking for 6 weeks. So, but that's better than 5 years complaint procedure, as some cases have taken. So the advocacy tips, so things that if you've got family and friends going along to schools with you and yourselves, be calm and solution focused. Approach conversations as a partnership rather than a confrontation. Be specific. Focus on practical, realistic adjustments rather than general complaints. And that's the benefit of having an advocate. We can take the emotion out of things and look at what is the actual reason I'm here and what do I want to get from here, not just bring up everything that we are aggrieved about, as I have done previously on my early journey into this arena. Highlight benefits. Explain how these adjustments help not just the child, but also the wider classroom environment. And bring support if needed. Attend meetings with parents to strengthen their confidence and ensure their voice is heard. I have not been to a school meeting without a parent. I don't ever intend to do that unless the parent says, I really can't, I am too het up. And if I go in there, I'm going to say the wrong thing. So will you please? But up to now, I've always gone to a meeting with parents or parent to make sure that they're the ones leading the talk, and I'm there to support them, not to talk for them, but to support them. And I would have done work previous so that they're not in the dark as to what's happening. Okay. So we do have templates for meeting notes you can use when advocating. So if you're taking a friend in that, this is what I suggest we would take in. So again, I will put this in the resources area of the site so that you can have a look at what to do and make your own little leaflet up really as to what you're going to take notes on and what you're going to focus on. It's almost like an agenda for you, so that when you go into this, you can't be distracted onto another conversation if you've got it all here. And as you can see, it's quite heavy in terms of what we're going to do. It makes it look as though this is something to be taken seriously, and because it's going to be taken seriously, I'm going to ask you to sign to say that we're all going to agree to what we have spoken about. We'll go on about the next steps, review dates, any additional notes, signatures of attendees that we spoke about, post-meeting tips, distribute the notes. So any notes we have taken, we will send to the school. Any notes the school have taken, we would hope and ask for them to send to us. School will say, well, we'll take the notes. That's fine, but take notes yourself as well. And actually ask, because I find it difficult to concentrate, I find it difficult to write down. And there may be things that I will miss because I do get a little bit flustered on meetings like this. So I would like to record this meeting purely so that I can go back on. This will not be shared with anybody. It's just so that I can go back and make sure I've understood in the right way. Some schools, in fact, the majority of schools don't allow you to record, but I think we need to be a little bit more robust on saying we need it to be recorded. It won't be used in any other way other than for the meeting purposes. And once we've gone through it, it can be destroyed if necessary. But sometimes recording the meeting is good. But if we can get somebody to write it down, so if I'm advocating, I can write down, because it's not, if you're the person going in there, you don't want to be writing. You need somebody else there to do the writing as well, and then see how it differs. Because some meetings and some schools that have done it, what has been reported back in terms of the documentation given to parents, a lot of the conversations have been missed off, and so some of the points that were raised are in there, but they're not in the right context. So that's the importance of having somebody to do that for you. And follow up, check in periodically to ensure the agreed actions are being implemented and working as intended. Okay, so that is excellent. We will leave it there and come back to what we do next if that doesn't work. So there will be a video on how to put a send tribunal into being if necessary. So thank you very much for watching this, and we'll speak to you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.